And I'm going to restart video number 2 and start sharing again. So I was able to read everybody's IPA questions yesterday, I think, and I gave feedback to everybody that had submitted a question. And I really strongly encourage folks to do that every week. These now 6.5 weeks are going to go by very fast, and it's really important for you to get feedback early on in this process. This week we're conceptualizing HBSE questions, and about half the folks I read, you guys had already done your questions. I'm really impressed that many of you just have a handle on this. Other folks are doing a really good job as well, but needed some advice, normal advice at this point about how to structure the questions. So I hope that that was helpful information to you as well. When we talk about HBSE questions, we're talking about human behavior courses. And I know it's been 1.5 years, maybe a little bit longer since you took your human behavior course. But anybody, just shout out what human behavior theories that you subscribe to that makes sense to you when you're working with consumers and you're thinking through what's influencing this person's behavior.
Like empowerment theory?
Empowerment theory is useful. In our program, that's conceptualized as part of integrative practice and is not conceptualized as part of HBSE. But that's still an important theory to consider when you look at how people's behavior is influenced.
Role theory?
Role theory is a good one for HBSE, absolutely.
And Maria said ecological theory.
Ecological theory is a very common one that folks use in these questions as well. What are some others? Think about child development too, because this goes all the way back to the class where you had child development.
Attachment theory.
Attachment theory, yep.
Social learning theory.
Social learning theory. I'm going to have to excuse myself for a minute and let all the pets out of the room. I'll be right back. We're starting to rumble over here. Okay, everybody out. Thank you. What other theories can you think of? Around child development or older adults or how we move in the world, what affects how we behave? Well, I'm just going to share them with you. Let me get to where my documents are. Dr. Garcia developed this course, and so he made a number of resources. And one of the things he made was a listing of all the HBSE theories that we've covered in the main ones that we cover in our 2 courses. So this is where the link is for this document on Moodle. And here's his list of HBSE theories. So we start with human development and lifespan theories. So we have everything from Freud, Erikson, Piaget, Kohlberg, then behavior and social learning, Watson and Bandura. We have cognitive theory with Piaget, which is different than Piaget's developmental theory. We have moral reasoning from Kohlberg. We have humanistic theory, Rogers and Maslow. Bioecological theory, which is the genesis of ecological theory. That was Bonfenbrenner. Sociocultural theory with Vygotsky, evolutionary theory with Darwin. I don't think we covered Darwin in our classes very often, but certainly is one of the things that is considered in human behavior theory. Then you move to some larger theories around meso-level interventions or meso-level groups. You get to functional theory and conflict theory and role theory and social learning theory, management theory. So these are some ways in which small groups of people can have their behavior influenced by these external factors related to these theories. So then mid-range theories include ecological, general systems, community organization theory. organizational learning theory. And then there's some alternative theoretical approaches. I wouldn't call life course theory very alternative these days. It's pretty straightforward. The strengths-based perspective, I would encourage you to not use this in HBSE because it's really much more around our integrative practice approaches that we talked about last week. Wellness theory, again, here's empowerment theory. I try to pull this out of HBSE week because it's more about our integrative practice. Standpoint theory, so now we're getting into theories about race and identity. So standpoint theory, critical race theory, and some that we don't cover much at all in detail, but that you could look at is theory Z, stakeholder theory, and chaos theory. Most folks who write this question, they tend to use, some people use critical race theory if they're familiar with it. A number of people use wellness theory. A lot of people use life course theory, and ecological theory tend to be the most popular ones. Folks that work with kids do a lot more around social learning theory, role theory, and developmental theories. So folks in those settings tend to use some of these earlier theories that we went over. But you only have to pick one theory and work with that one theory to develop your question. So this document is one of the resources available to you on the Moodle page. Something else that's available to you on the Moodle page is the syllabi that we have for the 2 HBSE classes. These are our master copies, so they're not necessarily going to be what it looked like for your particular class. We have all the instructor information missing, and the assignments might be slightly different. But at least you have the learning objectives and the week-to-week readings. And in 5005, you have access to a lot of websites that are linked to this, this particular syllabus. So especially all of the websites and videos and readings around human development, early child development in particular. And you also have links to all the videos. Now, some of these links, because the syllabus is a static syllabus and it sits from year to year, we don't update it, but every few years, you might have some website links that are not active, but it certainly provides you with a lot of resources for HBSE 1, which was SW5005. The other link that you have access to, oh, I hate it, I always pop, there we go. I pop myself out of Moodle a lot. SW5010, which was larger systems theories. So not about human behavior, but about groups and organizational human behavior. So here's the syllabus for this. And I don't teach this class very often, so I'm not familiar with what's in the syllabus. The textbook is still the Shriver textbook. And looks like you had a couple of observations that you had to do in this course, and group facilitation and some quizzes for this course. So it's outlined this particular way, and it gives you the readings and access to the listings of the articles that you had to read as well for this class. So if you haven't kept your HBSE book, it's a book by Shriver. Let me show you a copy of what the cover looks like. I have a digital copy that I have access to all the time because I teach the course regularly. And let's see what version I've got. So make sure that you've muted yourself so we don't get that feedback. I don't know if it's on the phone feedback with the computer feedback. This is one of the older versions of human behavior in the social environment. Let me see if I still have access to this because I haven't taught the class in a year. Yay, I still have access. Oh, maybe not. Good. So this is what the text looks like. The first 6 chapters are on kind of set the stage for traditional and alternative paradigms, and then working with individuals, working with families, groups, organizations, communities, and then global perspectives. So this is what this textbook looked like if you've not looked at it for a while. And let me pop out of here. And go back to Moodle and the resources there. Okay, so you have the syllabi, the theories that we looked at. We're going to look at some sample HBSE questions, and then here's the link for you to submit your questions this week. So at the first of every page on Moodle, I've got a PDF of what we're supposed to do this week. So this gives you some orientation to the types of activities that you should be engaging on this week. You're really adding to the portfolio of references that you developed when you wrote your introductory paragraph and when you developed your integrative practice paper. And this particular question focuses on human behavior theory and your population and your particular area of focus. So for instance, here are some examples of HBSE questions. And let me make this larger if I can find my, I can't find my, nope, I can't make it any larger right now this evening, but you can see this document on your own computer. So again, let's look at these questions. Synthesize key elements from trauma theory and theories of moral reasoning to offer social workers a more complex understanding of battered women's stay-leave decisions. So the population is battered women, and what we want to do is help social workers, this is the focus, we want to help social workers get a better understanding of these stay-leave decisions, which is a very common thing in working with women who've experienced interpersonal violence. So here they're using two different HBSE theories. One is trauma theory and the other is moral reasoning. And what they're going to do is synthesize. And when you synthesize something, you take two different things and you see how they work well together. So to synthesize something, you need two different theories to use. The second question, the person says, drawing on the work of Helms and Carter, offer a theoretical framework for social workers to better understand the connection among African-American youth's ethnic identity, trauma, and delinquency. So here we have the references for Helms and Carter. Helms is an article on racism and ethno-violence as trauma, and Helms writes about racism, psychological, and emotional injury. So they're taking these two theories developed by these authors and developing a framework so that social workers can understand their population, African-American youth, and their issues regarding ethnic identity, trauma, and delinquency. And the third example is pretty straightforward. Critique Kohlberg's theory of moral reasoning as a theoretical framework for understanding the decisions of Latino youth to join street gangs. So the population is Latino youth. The issue is the decision to join street gangs. Kohlberg is the HBSE theory, and the analysis verb is critique. So they're going to critique this theory for understanding the decisions of Latino youth to join street gangs. So that's the activity for this week, is to develop these three questions. Now, some of you are going to already know, bam, going to know your question the way you want it, and it comes out fully formed, which I really do have some respect for, quite a bit of respect for. Other people need to develop 2 or 3 questions or try wording it 2 or 3 different ways. So I'm still recommending that you send me 2 or 3 questions. And what I'm going to go back to do right now is I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can